listening to the longest running and number one rated podcast for all things San Antonio Spurs basketball. This is the Spurscast with your host, Paul Garcia.
You're listening to Spurscast, episode 665. My name is Paul Garcia, and I'm your host here on the Spurscast. On today's episode, I'll be joined by Project Spurs Director of Digital Content, Joe Garcia. Joe and I will discuss the Spurs' roster, who is likely to be waived before the season begins, and Manu Ginobili's upcoming Hall of Fame ceremony. Joe, it's been a while, man. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Been busy making a whole bunch of things for Project Spurs behind the scenes, and one of those things has been a new intro. So we're going to be using the new intro on this recording of Spurscast. So that's a good thing, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see that online, I know on YouTube on the visual format, but then of course you're not online. In the visual format, you can also listen to it in the audio. We'll have a new intro. So yes, definitely excited for that. All right, so Joe, it's still the off season. There's still about 4 weeks till we actually get real Spurs basketball here at the preseason. So there hasn't been much with the team. I'll just go into what's kind of happened lately with them. There's been a few signings here and there with the team. So let's just go through where the things stand since I last recorded about 2 weeks ago. Joe Wieskamp did re-sign. I had mentioned about 2 weeks ago that, the Spurs still had his qualifying offer out there. So there was a chance they could bring him back. And sure enough, they did. They recently signed him to a 2-year deal for $4.4 million. The first year is fully guaranteed. And then the second year is partially guaranteed for about $500,000 up until a certain deadline next offseason. And then, of course, it goes to about $2.2 million if he ends up on the team all of next season. So Joe Wieskamp is back again. The Spurs had showed that they had plans to bring him back by giving him that qualifying offer initially. Then there's been a few training camp deals. The Spurs have signed Alize Johnson, a veteran player, and also undrafted guard Tommy Kuhse from St. Mary's in California. They signed both of those players to Exhibit 10 contracts. So by signing those two players, the Spurs' roster is now capped at 20 players. They basically, in order to add another player, even if it's a training camp invite, they would have to waive someone. So again, we're waiting to see who they're going to waive, because we know they're going to waive someone because Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN recently reported that the Spurs will be adding another Exhibit 10 player in Jalen Adaway from St. Bonaventure. So again, Jalen Adaway will soon be signing with the Spurs. He hasn't yet, as of this recording that you and I are recording on Thursday evening. But again, we don't know who that player is going to be that's going to get waived. I would assume it's either Alize Johnson or Tommy Kuhse, just because they're on Exhibit 10 contracts. And again, Spurs' roster is currently capped. They have 14 players on guaranteed deals and 2 players on non-guaranteed deals, who we'll talk about in a little bit. And then, just where the schedule kind of stands, I'm assuming the NBA hasn't put this out officially yet, but I'm assuming that training camp's going to start here right at the end of September. So I'm assuming on Monday, September 26th, that's usually media day for the Spurs, that last week in September. And then training camp would begin on September 27th on a Tuesday. And then we know that their first preseason game is going to take place on October 6th against the Orlando Magic. So again, 4 weeks away as of this recording. So I know that's a lot of news and info. Joe, what are your thoughts on where this roster currently stands with 20 players and then bringing in soon Jalen Adaway?
Yeah, man. Unfortunately, somebody's going to have to go ahead and be waived in order to make that signing official, because currently the Spurs are going into training camp with the full roster, and that unfortunately means, like we said, somebody's going to not make the cut. So we wish them well, but, looking at the recent signings, like you've gone down the list and you've mentioned Jalen Adaway, Tommy Kuhse, and, Alize Johnson. I would think that, at this point in time, the Spurs, with their recent signing of Jalen Adaway, of course, they're going to have to waive somebody to get him to that Exhibit 10. I don't know, man. To me, I'm just feeling like Alize Johnson might be the guy to go. It looks like they have interest in Tommy Kuhse. So it looks like with these guys coming in with the 10, Exhibit 10 contracts, they're going to have to really prove themselves, and they're going to be fighting for a roster spot. And if, the consensus is if you don't make it, then they can go ahead and actually get signed up to the Austin G League team, So they have that as a consolation prize to still go ahead and try to prove themselves. But it's the nature of the beast. Somebody's got to it's not going to make the cut and get tossed, So it's going to be a tough decision, no doubt. But I'd have to say that, my gut feeling tells me that Alize Johnson might be the guy to go.
Okay, and you brought up a great point. A lot of times the Spurs do this. Not a lot of teams do this, where if they have a G League affiliate team, what they do is they sign the player to the training camp contract and then just waive them quickly. That way they can have again their G League. If they go to the G League, they have the chance of getting them on their specific team. So again, there's a chance Tommy Kuhse can end up on the Austin Spurs, or even somebody like Alize Johnson. So that was a great point that you brought up, Joe. Initially I thought it was going to be Kuhse who would get waived, and the reason why I say that is because the Spurs they've been doing some stuff on social media where like a few of the new players kind of visit the town, and they go to like different areas in the city that are like big tourist attraction parts of San Antonio. And so if you look on their Twitter feed, they've been putting out some videos like that. And so initially I saw a photo with and video clips with different players, and Alize Johnson was in there. So I was like, oh, maybe Johnson's player is going to stay. And I didn't see Tommy Kuhse, so I thought, okay, maybe Kuhse's the player they're going to waive. But then just recently they had another event, and they put some photos online, and Tommy Kuhse's in those photos. So again, we don't quite know. I mean, these players are they're interacting with the community. They're going out there participating. So again, I don't know who's going to be. Again, just because they're on Exhibit 10 contracts, those two players, I do like you, Joe. I agree. It's either going to be Alize Johnson or Tommy Kuhse. One of those players will be waived in order for Jalen Adaway to get signed. And then that leads us to another question. Another player, unfortunately, is going to probably have to be waived down the line. Now, not soon, but maybe at some point before the regular season begins. And so what I'm going to do is for the audience that watches this online on YouTube, I do want to show the visual for this part because there's a lot of contract numbers in here. So the Spurs down the road, again, not right now, they're going to have to eventually waive a player, one player, because they have, again, like I said, they have 14 players on guaranteed deals, and then they have 2 players on non-guaranteed deals. So let's go through who some of those players are. There's Job, who is on a non-guaranteed contract for $1.8 million right now. So again, he's on a non-guaranteed deal. Then there's Trey Jones, who's on a partially guaranteed deal for $500,000, and then his contract would fully guarantee at $1.7 million if he stays on the team the entire season. And then the last player is a player they added last year, the Spurs via trade, in the Derek White trade, and that's Romeo Langford. Now he does have a fully guaranteed deal for $5.6 million, and I know that's a lot. That's a huge amount for him. For a player. And you would expect, why is the player that's making $6 million going to get waived? I would say the reason why there's a chance for him is because we didn't really see him get to participate a lot last year, right at the end of the season. He was hurt a lot. But then also the fact that this is a young developing team who wants to give minutes to all their rookies and young players. And so his spot there at the shooting guard, guard position is going to be pretty packed in with all those new players like Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley. You still got Josh Primo. You got you still got Josh Richardson, a veteran. If they want to play him some minutes. So again, I feel like Langford, it's going to be tough for him to get on the court. So, it wouldn't surprise me if the Spurs did waive him. So again, they probably don't have to make this decision until right before the season starts in late October. But do you have an idea of who do you think out of these 3 players might end up getting waived?
That one to me is pretty easy. I believe it would be Romeo Langford, only because as you had stated, the Spurs are going to be going younger and they're going to be in a full rebuild. So they're going to want to go ahead and give more minutes to their younger players. And players just like Keita Bates-Diop, and Trey Jones in particular, they're more familiar with the Spurs system than Romeo Langford, So I think as far as the fit goes, you want to go with the guys that have already been in the system for a little bit of time. And unfortunately, going younger actually means you're going to have to go ahead and move some of your vets. So Romeo Langford would be my choice, the most logical choice.
Okay, I'm kind of tied between Bates-Diop and then also Langford, just because Bates-Diop, I feel like yes, he's a veteran. I feel like he could be maybe a playoff team could try to sign him down the road here at some point during the season. But and also like I said, his contract is non-guaranteed. But because the Spurs have so much cap room right now, it wouldn't be surprising again if they ended up waiving Langford's deal for $6 million there at $5.6 million. And again, because of like what you said as well is the fact that they have so many guards and it's going to be really tough for him to get on the court. So again, we'll kind of see what happens. Again, this doesn't have to be an urgent move by the team, but at some point before the regular season starts in late October, and about I think it's like October 20th, their first game. Yeah. Whenever that time comes, they do have to make they have to waive a player, or maybe they'll do some trades and end up taking so many players back and et cetera. But for now, we do know that down the line here they're going to have to waive a player. So again, we'll kind of see who that player ends up being down the road. And now, Joe, for our final topic, let's discuss one of the big events coming up this weekend. A lot of people are really excited for this. I'm very excited for this. And that is Manu Ginobili's Hall of Fame ceremony. So what's happening on Wednesday, not on Wednesday, on Saturday, September 10th at 7, I think it's Eastern time, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time on NBA TV. You can watch Manu Ginobili and multiple other former NBA players go into the Hall of Fame. Tim Duncan will be presenting Manu into the Hall of Fame, and he was of the class of 2020 most recently. And then, so, it's been really cool to see online, the Spurs showing all those different video clips and interviews of former players that played with Manu, and just kind of the contribution he's brought to the NBA and into the international game as well. He was such a significant player. So I just want to ask you, Joe, let's just share a few of our couple of favorite Manu memories. I know there's a lot, but just what are your thoughts on Manu going into the Hall of Fame, and then what are some of your favorite memories?
Favorite memories, I believe it was in that first playoff berth that he was here, and I think it was his rookie season with the San Antonio Spurs. And I just remember him having a breakout performance, and immediately everybody was, had their eyes on Manu. But we as Spurs fans, we knew that he was something special, just from his play during the regular season. But it was something special to see the national audience take note, so much so that I remember TNT had their post game, and that's when Charles Barkley was screaming, Ginobili, like they were just all raving about him. And you knew at that point that there was something special about Manu Ginobili, The other one too was, there's several moments. The other one that was iconic to me was the clashing of the heads, the nose to the head of Stephen Nash, during that infamous Phoenix Suns playoff rivalry that they had. And both of them were bandaged up pretty bad. Manu had that big old bandage on his nose, and they were still out there playing. Neither guy wanted to give up, and that was, again, just a testament to Manu, and he's just like not going to let anything stop him. And of course, the infamous bat scene, him just going out there and finally swatting the bat. He got tired of waiting. He just wanted to play basketball, and he just swatted it down with his hand, picked it up, and just gingerly gave it away. And unfortunately, because he did that, he had to deal with the rabies shots. What he said were brutal, Yeah. And two of the other moments that I remember with Manu specifically was, I believe it was a game that they had against, I believe, the Phoenix Suns, and the Spurs were down by double digits, and everybody left him for dead. Most of the fans, it was kind of a late start. Everybody went to sleep. They're like, they're going to lose. Manu Ginobili willed the team to victory. He had a miraculous fourth quarter, and they believe the Spurs defeated the Phoenix Suns, and it was by like maybe 2 points or a point, and they actually won that game. So just to show you again, he never gave up. He was always out there giving you every single thing he had. And of course, one of the iconic moments that I'll remember, and this is the last one, was when they were playing against the Warriors. In the playoffs, and they were here at the AT&T Center, and that was the last home game for Manu Ginobili, and he scored double digits. I believe he had something like 16 points during that game. The Spurs did wind up winning that game in front of the hometown crowd, and everybody was just on their feet cheering Manu. He was getting a little bit emotional, and you knew at that point that he pretty much just played his last home game here in front of the home crowd, and that was a special moment, and I was there to witness that. So those are things that I'm always going to remember.
Yeah, for me, one of my favorite seasons from him, just the entire season, was that 2005 when he had the long hair. I mean, the way he was able to just get through the defense, and he made the All-Star team that year. They ended up winning the championship in Game 7 against Detroit. That was a really fun memory. One of my favorite video clips I love seeing still to this day, and it always comes up like whenever you watch highlights of the NBA, is that one move he did in, I think it was 2003 against Shaq, where he kind of did the Euro step, and like Shaq goes one way and he goes the other way, and he gets the layup. That was one of the big ones. Just the fact that he brought the Euro step and just, all the times that he was able to, to use it in the games, and how unfamiliar to us as an audience it was when he first came to the NBA, and now it's like everyone's able to do the Euro step. It's what it looks like, all these different all-stars and players. And then just for me, it's been interesting watching watching how his career went from a media perspective. And the reason why I say this is because like when I was barely graduating high school, Manu was that was his first year with the Spurs, so and then ended up winning the championship. And I wasn't graduating high school; I was still in high school basically. So like I started watching him when I was still like a young teenager, and then as I started growing up, I go through my years in college, etc. And then I transitioned to the point where I ended up becoming a media member later on down the road, and it really seeing that different side of him was the fact that like how the Spurs really really relied on him, to be one of their like just a really top key player who they sent out for the interviews. He was always willing to do it, even in his latter years, once he was getting closer to retirement. The fact that there were some younger players, yes, who were kind of taking the core of the offense and becoming the go-to players for the team. But Manu was still that guy who was always ready if the Spurs wanted, if he wanted to speak with reporters, he was ready there to speak with us. And he was always one of the best interviews, went really into detail, provided great analysis of why they either won or lost games. And so it was really interesting just again seeing him as a fan when I was a fan, and then also as a media member, seeing how how his career went. And so again, Spurscast listeners, make sure you check that out on Saturday evening. Again, September 10th, it's Manu's Hall of Fame ceremony, so definitely check out that. That will be a very awesome event to watch. And so that's going to be some awesome times to watch there. All right, so before Joe and I close out this episode, don't forget to visit ProjectSpurs.com. We got a lot going on up there, especially with the season ramping up soon. We have Bailing Ganeshapa on the Spurs' roster, specifically the height of some of the players on the team. Our Fiesta short series by Trace Ronning is also up there on Project Spurs. Jazz Tamir she wrote about recently Devin Vassell's opportunity to step up this season. Benjamin Bornstein's getting ready for the draft next year, especially because the Spurs should have some really good picks. So he wrote about some Duke and Arkansas players to watch for this year for the draft. Matt Lermo recently wrote about the Spurs versus Warriors game that will take place in the Alamo Dome this season. And then lastly, if the Spurs do decide to trade Jakob Poeltl, Colin Reed wrote about a team that might be a really good fit for Poeltl if the Spurs again decided to go down that route. So again, season's coming soon. I mean, at least preseason is about 4 weeks away. So we're getting there. It's getting closer. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Spurscast. And also thank you to Joe for mixing and producing this episode. From all of us at Project Spurs, stay safe and have a great day.